Welcome to this week's edition of Freedom and Prosperity Radio, the weekly radio news magazine we put together here at the Virginia Institute for Public Policy. Find out more about us online at tertiumquids.org. Don't forget, next week's special coverage, we're going to be at the 400th anniversary of the General Assembly and the foundation of representative republicanism in the New World. In Jamestown, so we'll have full coverage of that coming for you next week. This week, we kick off in the boardrooms of America. I've said this before about our first guest, and I'll say it again. I think he's on the board of every single publicly traded corporation in America, and they wish they could get him off. He is Justin Danhof, General Counsel and Director of the Free Enterprise Project with the National Center for Public Policy. Find out more at nationalcenter.org. Justin, welcome back. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for, I don't know how you still have a forehead after all the walls you've had to hit it against, going to these board meetings, and you name it, these boards seem to be more and more populist. Every time I think our judicial system has lost its mind to rampant, out-of-control populism, I read some of your pieces from the boardrooms of America and these shareholder meetings, and I'm thinking, oh my God, the courts are conservative compared to the way some of these boards are operating. What's the latest? I understand you were with the Alphabet folks?
Yeah, so, let's start off by reiterating something that Tucker Carlson said last week that has generated a bit of controversy, but he's got a lot of truth and actually more than he knows. He said that the biggest threat to liberty is no longer federal government, it's big companies. And he was specifically focusing on big tech, I believe, but truly, this is across industry after industry after industry, where we're seeing the diminution of liberty brought on by corporate America, because what the left has known, and they've known for decades, is that you don't always need to change a law to change culture, right? You can change a corporate policy to change culture. You can change corporate attitudes and corporate behaviors. And they're doing it in three separate ways, and you and I are going to focus on one, but I just want folks to have the full paradigm in mind as they listen to us. And it's top-down, it's bottom-up, and it's outside-in. It's bottom-up because what I hear from corporate leaders when they take liberal positions, whether it's opposing a pro-life legislation in Georgia, for example, or opposing a border wall, which many companies do, they say, well, that's what our employees want us to do. So what have we got? We've got a situation where the most liberal, woke employees feel empowered to speak out to their managers, but the conservative-minded folks, libertarian-minded folks, Christians, religious folks, they feel silenced. So it's similar to what goes on college campuses across America. We're seeing that enter the workplace. It's outside in. What I do with engaging with corporate America is one thing from the conservative movement. But there's about 90 groups, not just 90 individuals, there's 90 groups on the left that engage corporate America from the outside in, just on shareholder advocacy. That doesn't even count the corporate rating systems that they use, the proxy advisor services that they use, and the like. So that's the outside-in problem with corporate America. And then what you and I should focus on today is the top-down problem. And this is where there are shareholder activists, there's Eric Holder and his band of lunatics, and there's search firms that are actively trying to make sure that corporate boards swing as far to the left as they possibly can. And they've been wildly successful.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, and certainly the boards, that is going to be the quickest way to do it if you're going to change things, because there's no deliberative process, there's no scrutiny outside of the board members and those who go to shareholder meetings. But all you have to do is make it clear that perhaps the company won't fare well in the court of public opinion should a civil rights suit be filed, whether they have any grounds for it or not. It's often these are the most likely to be threatened with character assassination because they're shareholder-owned companies, and these boards seem to worry more about the character assassination than even an individual does.
Right, right. And so let's put some data on this, right? Let's put a fine point on some data, and then we'll jump into Alphabet.
Uh-huh.
The left's reshaping of corporate boards over the last decade plus has been an epic success. Right now, in the Fortune 100, if we just focus on the top 10, board members that have past experiences, whether in a presidential administration, on any political campaign, or holding any political office, just in the Fortune top 10, we have 100% Democrat, 0% Republican. Let's take that a step further back. Of the full Fortune 100, just in the financial sector, 83% Democrat, 17% Republican. And for the tech sector, it's an 82 Dem, 18 Republican split. So that is a massive, massive imbalance when it comes to the leadership positions in corporate America. So again, we're not just talking about Silicon Valley here. We're not just talking about Hollywood. We are talking about across industry. This is a major imbalance. So when you read a headline of another company staking out another far left position, it's not against the will of the leadership. It is with the blessing of leadership.
We've talked about the size of companies and this from one angle, where we watch these tech companies stand in front of Congress saying, "Oh, please, you should develop an oversight committee, and we can help you build it." And it's often obvious, of course. Facebook wants to create a social media oversight committee and then lead it because then they can keep anyone from starting another Facebook. But the government, and this is what I'm learning more and more about, is more than willing to say, sure, because there is no Fourth Amendment, applying to the private operation of a company. So all the government has to do is say, no, we didn't search you. We searched Facebook and we found you. Sorry, we had the warrant to search Facebook and we found you. Sorry for your Fourth Amendment rights don't apply to Facebook. And so they're more than willing. And we're seeing, you mentioned the number of ex-government officials that have gone to work in these directorates all the way through, not just managing how the company operates, but creating this unholy alliance, Justin, that it seems to exist between government and corporations.
Yeah, if you want to know the number one reason why we shouldn't regulate big tech, and believe me, there's some conservatives that are falling down this rabbit hole, not thinking it through. The number one reason not to regulate big tech through a big federal hammer is that Mark Zuckerberg himself is the one screaming the loudest for federal regulation.
I know.
That's reason. That's the number one reason why we shouldn't regulate big tech, in my opinion. Other than the fact that it's a terrible idea. The fact that Zuckerberg wants to do it shows you that, yes, you're exactly right. The fact is, again, this is across industries. We saw this with Obamacare, right? Obamacare was supported by big pharmaceutical companies and big insurance companies, but small and mid-sized pharma companies and insurers fought it because the big insurers created barriers to entry inside Obamacare for somebody to start a new insurance company. Same thing with the pharmaceutical industry. They not only did they get kickbacks, but they created barriers to entry within the law. And so that's exactly what big tech wants to do. And it's just so interesting. And, of course, big government always has an appetite to step on it when they can, right? To stick their nose in it. But, yeah, anybody who watched any of the hearings where these tech giants were essentially calling on themselves to be regulated, the questions being asked should also give you an indication that there's absolutely no way the federal government has any sophistication to regulate Google or Facebook or the like. So their lack of sophistication should be another cause of concern because they would literally have to rely on the industry to help them write the regulations because they couldn't do it themselves. And so that's another point in the problem.
I feel like we've lost the language too, Justin. We're talking with Justin Danhof, General Counsel and Director of the Free Enterprise Project at the National Center for Public Policy. The language in 1789 when things like the interstate commerce bills were being put to regulate, was to make regular, was to protect the equality of opportunity of any company to trade. We have turned that into and maybe changed the definition of it, it seems anyway, to give permission to. And I feel like, is there any way we get that language back to where make regular is the definition of regulate, not give permission to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough example because it's a little bit esoteric, and folks have a tough time getting their mind around it. But I always remind folks of the trucking example, where the state of Iowa tried to change their lanes, the size of their lanes on the interstate highways, so that trucks would have to be different in the state of Iowa, and they would sell trucks to everyone. So all across the country, we'd have interstate highways one size, but in Iowa they would be a different size, so you'd have to buy their trucks. That's what we talk about, when we're making things regular. The road's all regular for everyone.
Right.
And so you can give folks that example, and they sort of might kind of get it. But it is difficult to kind of unring the bell when we've gone so far down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. But all hope is not lost, because look, when it comes to what we're talking about with corporate malfeasance, especially in the tech industry, the outside in effect, what I do, we can start having an effect if we just create, amplification for that. If Google hears from more conservatives, if Facebook hears from more conservatives, we don't need to go down a regulatory path.
Mm-hmm.
We can go down an engagement path, because that's what the left does. The left is fully engaged at Facebook. They're fully engaged at Alphabet. If you went to the shareholder meetings, as I did this year, you would see that these left-leaning companies are being pressured both from the inside, from the top, and again from the outside, to move even further to the left.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They are being petitioned to regulate even more hate speech out. And of course, the left defines what hate speech is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we saw this incident with Alphabet, and that's why I went to the Alphabet shareholder meeting. Alphabet, of course, the parent company of Google now, who also owns YouTube, which is consistently deplatforming conservative voices.
Absolutely.
But what happened was, a few months back, they had formed an AI advisory board. It hadn't even met yet. They just announced it. And one of the individuals on that board happened to be Kay Coles James. And for those who don't know her, she is the president of the Heritage Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened was a bottom-up problem. There was a few very woke employees at Alphabet that got furious, rallied around their woke employees together, and they went to management and demanded that she be removed because they claimed she's transphobic, homophobic, and here's the kicker, that she's a racist. Well, apparently they don't even know how to use their own Google and click on images, because Miss James is a 69-year-old black woman.
That's so sad. It's, but that's the lunacy that we've found ourselves in, and woke is such a right word for the labeling that they need. Is that they don't want right and wrong; they just want to feel better, and it almost is the manifestation of something I've watched for 33 years, Justin. It's this idea of I don't need to do anything in my community. I voted for the right person. So the leftist population has grown around this idea of I don't need to go to the soup kitchen. I voted for Congressman Who's he should be taking care of that. That's what I voted for him for. And it seems like these employees are now kind of the fruits of this coming forth. But we've also disassociated these companies from what should punish them, which is, paging Adam Smith to the main stage, please. The consumers have no choices, and it'll get worse if the government comes in to regulate more. You have no constitutional right to Facebook per se, but it is certainly the most convenient way to reach everyone. But if all the customers left, I worry that we're in a place post-Obamacare where you can be ordered to have a social media platform. You would be ordered to have a particular email account. Everyone needs a government Gmail account. That certainly never happened before. Hold it. Here's a series of numbers so the government can keep some Social Security for you later on. I mean, the Pandora's box frightens me, Justin.
Well, and it should, because look, here's the fact. Google controls 90% of all search around the world. And, James O'Keefe at Project Veritas has done some great work on this, and some insiders have come to him with the fact that they are literally now deciding that truth is no longer truth if it doesn't represent the worldview held by the people at Google.
Yeah, we can make the truth. We can change the truth just by changing enough minds about it.
Yeah. So, for example, and the insider, gave this to James, said, type in the words "men can," and then it's autofilled by the very first one is "get pregnant," then the second one is "have babies." He said, "No, of course people are not searching for this." But that's what Google wants you to see when you search for this, to promote some sort of crazy transgenderism-ish issue. When you type in "women can," the answer is "do anything, be president," like all these positive reinforcements. And so that's what they're admitting, is that they are using their algorithm to represent a worldview that they want, not what. And this is not what Google always did, mind you. Google used to give you the top search results that everyone else was searching for. It was a popularity thing so that you would find the information that was most valuable to the most people. And that was how the algorithm used to work. But 2016 changed that. If you see the videos on Breitbart that Breitbart broke following the election, Google held a town hall with a bunch of the leaders and packed room full of employees and other employees videoing in. And 2016 and Donald Trump broke their brain. Google employees admitted, we did everything we could to elect Hillary Clinton and it didn't work. And so 2016, that's what the insider says, the mindset changed. And the new goal was to make sure a Trump situation, quote unquote, never happens again.
That's true. Beyond that, I think it started even before that. And again, you go back to green over blue or red. I think Google realized there was money to be made by manipulating search. And for every Google person that claims that the O'Keefe videos are, that was for 10 years, 15 years, I've had consultants calling me saying, we can, pay us per click and you're going to get this. And Google algorithms have been manipulatable because there's an entire industry of consultants out there working with website optimization to get you in the golden triangle, the upper left-hand corner of each Google search page. And then Google will sell you that as well, will sell that opportunity to you. So this idea that Google, no, that could never happen, that's Alex Jones stuff, Joe, is just ludicrous, because anyone who's spent 5 minutes in anything that's needed a website knows Google has been selling this opportunity for 15 years.
Well, and of course, they've paid epic fines in the European Union specifically because Google has many, many other products. So what they were doing was manipulating search so their own products would come up higher.
Yeah, exactly.
So they manipulated it for the bottom line, and everyone knew that. So if you can manipulate it for one purpose, you can manipulate it for any purpose you want. That's the point.
So now you went to the Alphabet board, to their shareholders meeting, and what was the outcome? What did you find? I don't recall seeing you carried out on a stake or anything, so it wasn't that bad. But what happened when you confronted the Alphabet board?
Yeah, so first of all, I had filed a resolution asking the board to try and expand itself in the view in diverse terms. Except I don't define diversity as what someone looks like. I define it as who they are, their ethos, their belief system, what they think. So I presented a viewpoint diversity resolution. That was rejected, not voted on at the meeting. So what I did was I did talk about Heritage President K. Cole James. And I asked what happened with that situation, and I used her own words. Because what happened was, instead of just kicking Kay James off, they disbanded the entire AI advisory board. So again, the woke employees go to management with a demand, and management, with their weak knees and their liberal belief system anyway, said, "Yeah, you're probably right. We shouldn't have this."
Well, we can't fire her.
Conservative.
We can't fire her, but we can disband the entire group she was in charge of, and then just say, "Yeah, we just disbanded the group. It wasn't her. It wasn't personal."
Yeah, I think So that's what I did. I asked Mr. Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, will you commit to course correction at this company and start promoting actual viewpoint diversity? You could establish a public advisory board, put Ms. James back on it, and you could actually work towards becoming tolerant and inclusive, because I gave example after example of intolerance, but only towards conservative thought, only towards conservative people, only towards conservative organizations. Google is perhaps the least tolerant organization on planet Earth. And you know what Mr. Pichai had to say? Nothing. He couldn't even answer a basic question about if they would extend the idea of tolerance to conservative people and conservative thought.
But how is that even a good business model, Justin? If 50% of the American population voted for Donald Trump and 50% voted for Hillary Clinton, percentages here and there, isn't it just good business to say we need to represent both sides so that everyone's shopping here?
You would think so, but again, since they are such a dominant player, they think that they can continue to get away with this with impunity. And so this is my point, is we need to encourage, because they do exist, the conservative employees at Google to rise up and use their voices, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that needs to happen, is these places aren't 100% monolithic. Right. It's just they're the only people speaking out are the liberals. So that's something we need to do. We need to engage, not disengage. One thing I often warn conservatives about when they get angry at Nike for being with Colin Kaepernick and everything else is boycotting has never worked in our movement to success. So be wary of that. Do what the left does. Engage. Don't disengage. Mm-hmm. Sure, go use DuckDuckGo. I don't have a problem with that. But don't call it a boycott of Google, because guess what? They now control, 89.9999999 to the millionth decibel if you leave.
If you leave, right? Yeah.
So that's the point. Is you're not going to be as impactful as if you were to engage.
And
so don't disengage,
right.
Engage.
The left has done that very well over 10, 15 years since, ironically, the Clinton administration started to leave office. And certainly the most notable infiltrations on the media level were the George Stephanopoulos and the Paul Begalas and the James Carvilles, who were in front of the camera. But ever since the mid-'90s, the number of ex officio Democrats that have gone into the back rooms of not just the media, but all sorts of influencing businesses has been staggering.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like what we talked about at the beginning with the numbers. Mm-hmm. The numbers are staggering. And again, it's not just in front of the camera. And just this morning, go take a look. Project Veritas released another video with another Google insider, basically saying that his biggest fear is actually the coordination of old traditional media like CNN and new tech like Google and Facebook, that they're coordinating now to get their political messaging operation in order.
But what is
That's
the choice?
The biggest fear.
What, and I'm going to go back to Adam Smith, Justin, and say, where do we go? And even as an employee in Google, if you work for Alphabet, and you want to rise up, what's to stop Google from saying, hey, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, or to borrow from the president, go back to where you came from, and now you're there you're there trying to find a job at the other big search engine, and guess what? There isn't another big search engine unless Ask Jeeves is doing anything these days. Do I get any points for remembering Ask Jeeves?
That is fantastic. As a matter of fact, you do get points for that. Well, look, here's the thing. You can start small. Like, ask to form a conservative group and get denied, and then go to the press, because even the liberal press will cover that, right? Okay. Ask to form recognized Christian group, because all of these companies, and this is what insiders have told me, is that they can't get recognition even as an organization. It's kind of, again, this is the extension of college campuses where Christian legal societies are being thrown out of law schools every 5 minutes now. And so what we need to stop is the stem of that. And one thing I will say that I always remind people of is, let's talk about, going back and what Jeff Bezos always says about Amazon. It's like Amazon could become Sears someday. These companies will not exist forever in perpetuity.
Right.
It's just not realistic. So, their time will come.
Right. I remember
but I would encourage folks, just use the model that the left has given us. Use their model and turn it on its head. Do a 180. It's what I do at the Free Enterprise Project. And whatever you do in your sphere of life, take what the left has done and do a 180 on it.
All right. Well, I appreciate the efforts on our behalf in going to these board meetings and trying to expose it as well. Not even in a defensible way. They find themselves hung on their own petard. Like you said, I remember the days when Tipper Gore was the more popular of the couple, and she was out there saying we need to do something about MySpace. I think that's right there with Ask Jeeves as well these days. So,
MySpace took care of itself, Tipper.
Yep, and Napster as well. Let's not forget the evil Napster was going to bring down Western civilization as well. Justin Danhof, General Counsel, Director of the Free Enterprise Project at the National Center for Public Policy, and I always forget, is it research or...
You got it.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I'm like, what's the R? Is the R research? Or National Center for Public Policy Research, nationalcenter.org. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Freedom and Prosperity Radio.
Thanks, Joe. Have a good one.
Coming up next, we continue on this. The co-creator of ChinaTechThreat.com, Rosalind Layton, on TikTok and privacy. Kind of dovetails with what we were talking about. Do you have privacy once you've started a TikTok account? Up next on Freedom and Prosperity Radio.